Namaste and welcome to the Vedic Wisdom Podcast, where timeless Vedic stories meet modern psychological insights to help us navigate life with clarity and resilience. I'm your host Lalitha Murali, and today's episode explores three powerful themes from the Ganesha Purana: the power of self-efficacy and motivation, the power of social learning and role modeling, and the wisdom of coping. Joining us today is Mrs. Arthy Sriram, a seasoned counseling psychologist known for her compassionate approach to emotional well-being, motivation, and personal growth. Her work beautifully bridges ancient wisdom with contemporary mental health practices. Let's get into today's interview and uncover how Ganesha stories continue to guide the modern mind. Arthy, the Ganesha Purana highlights self-efficacy and motivation. How is this reflected in Ganesha stories?
In the Ganesha Purana, Ganesha is often portrayed as confident in his abilities despite physical limitations. A key example is when he accepts the responsibility of writing the Mahabharata. He sets conditions, trusts his intellect, and commits fully to the task. Psychologically, this reflects self-efficacy, the belief in one's capacity to succeed. Motivation grows when individuals trust their own abilities and feel purposeful. In therapy, people with strong self-efficacy are more resilient, persistent, and less fearful of failure. Ganesha's story reminds us that confidence isn't about perfection, but about trusting ourselves enough to begin and continue even when the task feels overwhelming.
That's so powerful. Believing you can try often matters more than knowing you'll succeed. My next question is, how can listeners cultivate self-efficacy and motivation in their everyday lives?
Self-efficacy grows through small, consistent successes. Start with achievable goals and acknowledge progress. If you see in the Ganesha Purana, Ganesha doesn't rush. He works steadily, trusting the process. Psychologically, this aligns with motivation theory, which shows that mastery experiences build confidence. Another key factor is self-talk. Encouraging inner dialogue strengthens belief, while constant self-criticism weakens it. When people reframe setbacks as learning opportunities, motivation becomes intrinsic. Ganesha teaches us that motivation isn't about external validation. It's about inner conviction. When you believe in your capacity to handle challenges, effort feels meaningful rather than exhausting.
Oh, that makes motivation feels less intimidating and more sustainable. Moving to social learning and role modeling, how does the Ganesha Purana explain this concept?
Ganesha learns not only through instruction but through observation, watching Shiva and Parvati, observing values like patience, compassion, and balance. This mirrors social learning theory, which suggests that people learn behaviors by observing role models. Psychologically, role models shape our coping styles, emotional responses, and moral framework. In therapy, we often explore whom clients admire and unconsciously imitate. Ganesha's upbringing shows that consistent, value-based role modeling has a deep psychological impact. The Purana reminds us that children and adults learn more from what we do than what we say, making mindful behavior a powerful teaching tool.
That's such a gentle reminder that we are always influencing someone, knowingly or unknowingly. How can positive role models influence mental health and personal growth today?
Positive role models provide behavioral blueprints. When people see others manage stress, communicate calmly, or recover from setbacks, they internalize those patterns. In the Ganesha Purana, Ganesha embodies the lessons learned from his parents and becomes a role model himself. Psychologically, this creates a cycle of healthy learning. In modern life, mentors, parents, teachers, and even public figures can shape coping and motivation. The key is conscious selection. choosing role models aligned with your values. When individuals surround themselves with emotionally healthy influences, growth feels more natural and less forced.
The idea of conscious role models really stands out. The wisdom of coping is another strong theme, which Ganesha's story best reflects this.
Ganesha losing his tusk is a profound example. Instead of being overwhelmed by loss, he adapts and continues writing. This reflects adaptive coping, acknowledging pain while finding functional ways forward. Psychologically, coping isn't about avoiding distress, but responding flexibly to it. In therapy, we distinguish between maladaptive coping like avoidance and adaptive coping like acceptance and problem solving. Ganesha's response teaches us that setbacks don't define us, our coping choices do. His story normalizes struggle while modeling resilience, creativity, and emotional strength in the face of adversity.
That's such a comforting perspective. Pain acknowledged, but not allowed to stop purpose. What practical coping strategies can listeners apply during emotional stress?
Thank you, Lalitha, for asking this question. In today's fast-paced world, all of us are facing a lot of emotional stress. Effective coping begins with awareness, naming emotions without judgment. Next comes regulation through grounding techniques like deep breathing or journaling. The Ganesha Purana shows Ganesha responding thoughtfully rather than impulsively, which reflects emotional regulation. Another powerful coping tool is meaning, making, asking. What is this experience teaching me? In modern psychology, this is linked to post-traumatic growth. When individuals cope with curiosity rather than resistance, distress becomes manageable. Ganesha's wisdom reassures us that coping isn't weakness, it's an evolving skill that strengthens emotional resilience over time.
That reframing feels especially helpful in today's fast-paced world. How do self-efficacy, social learning, and coping wisdom work together?
These three form a psychological support system. Self-efficacy fuels motivation, social learning shapes behavior, and coping wisdom helps us manage setbacks. In the Ganesha Purana, we see Ganesha embody all three: confident in action, shaped by his environment, and adaptive in difficulty. Psychologically, when these elements align, individuals feel empowered rather than helpless. They trust themselves, learn from others, and respond flexibly to stress. In modern life, cultivating all three leads to emotional maturity, resilience, and balanced decision making, qualities essential for long-term well-being.
It's so amazing how interconnected these lessons are. Arthy, if you could leave our listeners with one Ganesha-inspired psychological takeaway, what would it be?
I would say, believe in your ability, learn from those around you, and respond wisely to life's challenges. Ganesha's stories remind us that strength isn't about control, but confidence, connection, and coping. These principles are as relevant today as they were centuries ago, guiding us towards emotional balance and inner growth.
That's such a beautiful note to reflect on. Mrs. Arthy, thank you for sharing such meaningful insights and showing us how the Ganesha Purana continues to shape psychological wisdom today. To our listeners, may you trust yourself, learn wisely, and cope with compassion. This has been the Vedic Wisdom Podcast. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep growing. Namaste.